So on this screencast, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what motivational interviewing is. We won't be looking at the specific skills and strategies because we will look at those in year 2 and we will spend some time practicing some of those. So what is it? You might have heard the term quite a lot, but what exactly does it mean? And you'll notice as we go through that it uses some of the terms that are very familiar with person-centered care and with a behavioural approach. So we're looking at something that's collaborative, which means that you and the service user are working together. It is goal orientated. So we're trying to support the service user to come up with goals. There's a purpose behind the consultation. We're not just having a chat. We're not just listening. The communication is there with a goal. And this fits with our social influence. We are there in our roles to support people to make health-related behaviour change. So the goal of the communication is for behaviour change. So in motivational interviewing, you really listen for the language of change. So something that the service user is saying that might suggest they're ready to change or willing to consider some change. So the whole point is you're trying to work to strengthen that person's motivation and their commitment to a specific goal. And you do that by working with them and discussing, exploring what reasons they might have for making a change, and including some of the reasons they might not feel able to make a change. But this is in an atmosphere of accepting them, so not judging them for not wanting or feeling able to make change, and it's a compassionate and caring environment. And the whole point is we try and work towards getting people to commit to that change by resolving something called ambivalence. And ambivalence is where you want to change but you can't. So you're stuck in a position of not being able to balance out the reasons for change over and above the reasons stopping you change. So ambivalence is key, and listening to the language of change is also key. So what key skills do that we actually need for motivational interviewing? And if you look down this list of core skills, you will see a lot of them is very similar to the person-centered approach. And so some things that you're going to be learning on this module already. How to ask open questions, providing affirmation to your service user, reflecting back to them what they've said, both in paraphrasing and reflecting feelings, summarising what they have said so that they can hear what you have heard. We listen and we acknowledge any language of change, and that's something that is additional, particularly for motivational interviewing. And then exchanging information, and that is something that we're also going to be practicing, learning how to find out what that service user wants to know, offering an explanation, giving that explanation, and then also checking what they've made of that explanation. So exchange of information is a normal part of our consultations. So those are the core skills, very much strongly overlapping with what we're already looking at. The processes use slightly different terminology. So the process of engaging, which is establishing a working relationship. And we will be learning how to do that. We just don't tend to use the word engaging, but establishing a relationship is something that we will do and practice. We will focus in on an agreed agenda. So we might go in with our referral thinking, right, this is our agenda, but we will be creating an agreed agenda with our service users. Evoking is about finding out what matters, the views, the beliefs of the service user. So that again is part of that learning more about them, being genuinely interested in them and trying to understand their perspective. And then there is the whole idea of making a plan. So having something very clear that the service user is going to go away and do as a result of your consultation. So here we have a couple of examples, one which fits with motivational interviewing and one which doesn't. So I suggest you just stop the recording for a moment and read these two quotes, these two conversations. So hopefully you can see that the directing style is telling the person what to do and can cause resistance. It's making the problem seem very simple so that someone should be able to deal with it. So if you get a response like yes, but, the but is suggesting to you that you haven't engaged that person and they aren't at a position where they feel ready to make change. And that might be that you have created that resistance by the way that you've communicated with them. The guiding style, the second one, is much more what you're expecting to get if you're using motivational interviewing. So the client may be saying, yeah, I'd really like to do this, but I can't because. So they're saying, they're describing to you something that which suggests they are ambivalent. And we reflect that back immediately. So you can see the value of these things, but you struggle to see how you could succeed at that. So you're just trying to make sure that you communicating, you've heard. And then often once you've done that, the service user says, well, maybe I could do this. And that maybe I could is change talk. They're beginning to recognize there might be something they could do, even if they can't do everything that would be beneficial at this time. And one of the most important things for us to recognize is that motivational interviewing is not a fixed trait. A motivation or lack of motivation is not a fixed character trait. So you can't say, oh, that person is not motivated. It's a dynamic state or a stage. It's not something that can never be changed. So we should never be labeling our service user as an unmotivated person. If the service user is defensive or resistant, then we recognize that. We work with it. We keep reflecting back, keep being person-centered. And that frequently is enough to help that person move forward and begin to see the benefits of change. So it's collaboration, not confronting. It's making sure you maintain that relationship and that compassion and that caring. So the whole idea of the motivational interviewing is to this resolve ambivalence. And there are tools that we will look at next year, a decisional balance grid and change rulers that help people to think through their decision-making process. Think about how important the change is to them or how confident they are in making those changes. So we will use some of these things in our process over this module, and some of those things will be considered next year. Motivational interviewing uses behavioural strategies to support behaviour change. And if you look at motivation interviewing as a strategy, there's a really good book on it. There's also one, Nutrition and Motivation Interviewing. And what it's trying to do is explore the barriers, provide choices for your service user, be empathic with their situation, provide feedback on what they are suggesting or considering, making sure goals are really, really clear. And it's a very active process of being helpful into that person's situation. So if we think about the overall change that we're looking for behaviour change, we're looking at what's going on now, we're looking at what the vision is, where we want to be, and then how we're going to go forward in order to reach that vision. So that's the kind of overarching principles of what we're trying to achieve. So the key tasks that we're going to have in our consultation are to build a relationship, establish rapport. Between us, we're going to set an agreed agenda. So we work with the service users. What's our focus? What are we going to do? There may be a number of behaviour changes that they want to consider, and then they might work on a specific one. So you might consider a number and then think, actually, this is where I'm going to start. And then we might be looking at this whole idea of, well, how important is this change? How confident am I that I can make this change? So we can explore those using motivational interviewing tools, and then work on, right, what does that leave us? So where are we going next? What are the key things that we're going to do? All through that, we're exchanging information. It might be we're helping them to understand our role. It might be we're helping them to understand their medical condition. So we will be doing some of that information exchange in the module. But as we go through this process, what we're trying to do is reduce resistance to change. And that's a key part of what motivational interviewing is about, and what we are going to be working on in the skills over the module. So just kind of summarize the session, what we didn't fit in today. We need health-related behaviour change to happen with our service users. We have to focus on a person-centred, personalised approach, not focusing on the disease or the disorder. We need to be person-centred to develop our good communication skills, because they're the foundation on which everything else is going to be based. You can't learn motivational interviewing and use motivational interviewing successfully without having good communication skills. There's a lot of different skills and strategies we can use to try and support behaviour change, and it's very likely that you will need to do some further training once you are actually qualified, because there's lots more you can develop in order to make you a better practitioner.